What's up, babes? Another video today, the monthly One Piece video. I might start making more of these within a month just because there's so much to talk about. It feels like you could talk about One Piece forever. Like I said in why you should watch One Piece, you can talk about so many things. And just one of the many topics we can talk about, and we can talk about this for plenty of videos, but Haki. And what kind of a power Haki is. Is it good? It's gotten a lot of shit over the years, but Haki. Now, as somebody who's been a fan of One Piece as long as I have, Haki at first was kind of so-so for me. I was weirded out by kind of how they decided to approach it, and originally it didn't have any like visual cues, because now we have what you see up there where like the hand actually gets like black and there's armament around it and you can see it. But early on, like with Sentomaru, I think his name was, the greatest defensive man in the world, there was nothing. When Rayleigh was showing what Haki originally was, there was nothing. But when he demonstrated observation, that did make sense. It's kind of just a matter of foresight, and then you kind of, the longer we've been in the New World, the more we've been able to see with that. And then King's Conquerors, more people getting that. I mean, Zoro obviously just got that as an ability, is very broken. So, kind of starting off with what it means to have Haki and what I think of the power scaling system just in general. I like to think that Haki was created, and this is something I talked about way long ago when the time skip was a thing. Logia type fruits were too busted. They were too broken. They were clearly the best one. Smoker could have beaten Luffy until the time skip, honestly, because there was nothing he could have done about it. He could run, and that's kind of what he would do when he would see Smoker, but that's all he would do is run away because he couldn't hit him, and there was nothing he could do about hitting him. And then they're like, well, that's kind of too busted. Unless you have like something like counters, then what are we gonna do? And a perfect example of that is Crocodile in Alabasta when Luffy had to fight him. If he has Haki, it's not as big of a deal, but him finding out that he has to coat his hands in like water or blood in order to make connection with the Logia type, kind of started poking a little bit of holes in what devil fruits are. And devil fruits as a power scaling system in general, I think, is much more accepted by a wider audience, but there needed to be something to counter Logias, just because Logias were so much more broken than everything now. And now we can kind of see an even playing field, because we have to know that the military is heavily invested in teaching people Haki. Kobe's a prime example of that. I think he has been dominating that game, and it's really been shown that that's something that they teach, and that's something that can just make you crazy good in general. Like, a lot of people think that Shanks doesn't even have a devil fruit, he's just a Haki master, and that would make sense, and that would add up in a lot of ways just because of how much we know about it now. And even in Wano, down there, Rio, and Rio's kind of a new ability that is a step past armament, because I think armament was good for what it was and like kind of what we needed to do at the time to counter Logia type devil fruit users, but now it's kind of a step up, and we kind of need Rio to go within that. And I think they did a really good job of explaining that. I don't think Haki was too accepted, like around the time that I said, like right after the time skip, people were kind of like, like I don't know how much I like it. King's Conquerors is cool, I think most people accept that. Observation still hadn't really made too much of an appearance yet, but Armament was definitely the one that most people were like kind of wary about. But I think since then, most people understand it, most people are cool with it, ever since like Virgo and everyone's using it now, that it's just kind of accepted. And I like it, but I like Rio even more because of how it explains it. It's destroying things from the inside out, which is great. Which is, now armament's not just the Logia counter, and I'm not saying that it always was that. Sometimes you just needed it to fight people who are also great at using armament. But now Rio's the thing of, I can't break through you because you're too powerful, or this object is too powerful, so I need to be able to destroy you from the inside out. I think that was described really well. I think the training that Luffy went through in the prison and outside the prison with that was great. And even more recently, kind of, well, a little bit of spoilers if you're just in the anime, but if you're caught up in the manga, it's not. King's Conquerors coding. Now, I find this really interesting, just because it's needed obviously with Kaido, right? And in one of the most recent chapters, not the most recent, but there's a splitting of the skies, which is kind of welcoming Luffy into the Yonko level. And if you disagree with that, you're just wrong. But that's kind of what it's doing when splitting the sky. But what's interesting about that is the defense that Kaido puts out. I think his King's Conquerors is so strong that without every punch having that coated around it, you're not able to make connections. And it's kind of weird. Now, I'm pretty sure, so when they're fighting, they're not even really making connections. It's just the aura of each other hitting, connecting. And it's interesting because I don't know exactly how that's being done. The visuals on it are really nice. I mean, I like what Oda's doing visually, like drawing it out and showing it. But I think we're going to start to learn a lot more about that in the fights to come. But it's really interesting that King's Conqueror is no longer like, I'm just going to take out all the wimps. But now it's like, I can kind of coat my abilities in it. It's also a defensive type of tactic. But King's Conquerors, I think, was everyone's favorite when all three were announced, or when all three came out. I like King's Conquerors because I think it's awesome in order to put your will above somebody else's, and in doing that, you can kind of take out the fodder, or in doing that, you can kind of get what you want a lot of the time. And when Luffy started doing that for like the first couple times, it was interesting. And then you see that he's been training when we get the Fishman, and he's like, I'm just gonna take out half of you just like that, and it's believable. You like it or you don't like it. I think most people do like it, but I think the way that it's starting to come out now is even better. Like with Zoro, for example, he would not have been able to cut Kaido at all if he didn't have it. And that's what he's like, you have it too? I don't know what you're talking about, man. I just put everything I had into that. And that's kind of like the will aspect of it, which is why it's my favorite, because it's kind of a tough thing to put on like a power scaling system, or to give a power or ability to. Will, like having a stronger will than somebody else. Like, how do you measure that? You can't really measure that too much in real life. Like, you look at a UFC fight or just a random fight between two people, I guess most of the time the person with the stronger will is going to win, but there's no way that's always true, right? So the fact that they're showing like that they are just able to do things that other people are not able to do, like after finding out that you need the King's Conquerors, and even in order to damage Kaido, which Luffy's learning on the fly. Like, it took him a little bit to learn Rio, and that was already a hard enough ability, but now he's learning another one on top of that, which is like King's Conqueror punches, blows, and stuff. Just having that will in every single punch that you throw and focus. But it's crazy to think about where it came from and now what it's doing. And then you have to think about nobody would have been able to beat Kaido. Like, now I think Odin had this ability, which is why he was able to cut him, but that's why most people are not even able to hurt him. That's why it doesn't matter, because you don't have that will. You don't have that ability to hurt him. But I'm very excited for this fight. I think that fight's going to be amazing, but that's not really what this video is about. Of course, I don't think this fight's going to end for like a while. Because we're on a break this week, sadly. But with the most recent chapter with Sanji coming out with like his newfound abilities that he had from when he was a kid, I think they're going to be even stronger than his siblings. But like I said, another video, another time. Next point is, I think my favorite is observation Haki. Because as it's named, it's kind of the easiest one to visualize a lot of the time. Like, at first I was kind of confused, because it's much easier when you're watching the anime, and like in Whole Cake, Katakuri is able to see what's about to happen at the wedding. At the wedding, he can see it, and you see it as like a foresight that he's able to visualize. But in the manga, it was like a little tougher to see. But even like once you start to get it down, and after a couple times, you're like, oh yeah, this makes total sense. Makes absolute sense. Usopp doing that in Dressrosa was just awesome. Like, the thing with Armament, Rio, King's Conquerors, all that is a lot of normal characters can't do that. But observation seems to be something that a lot of people are able to learn, not necessarily on the fly, but just gain that ability over time, gain that ability during stressful situations. And it's really cool to see. And now just about everyone has it. That's like doing a lot of the fighting. Like, everyone has it to a point, it seems. Like, if even Usopp's able to have it, which, by the way, he better not get King's Conquerors, but unless they do it in a beautiful way with Elbaf, but we'll see. What I really like about observation is it's literally that foresight, and that's a big reason why Katakuri and Luffy was definitely one of my favorite fights in the series, just because it was the same thing that we're seeing now with Luffy trying or attempting to learn this new ability of King's Conquerors to fight Kaido, and observation to fight this guy who can see the future. And it's like, well, how do you beat somebody who's able to see the future? You have to see the future too. And everything that went into that fight, and like the end of it, he's like, how far into the future are you looking? And you just see that Luffy's naturally gifted at these abilities. But observation as a whole, like Sanji using it, Zoro using it, everyone using it, and kind of just visualizing everything around them to have that foresight so that they need to win, is just such a clutch factor, believable thing that I think observation is kind of the best. Just because of what it means. I think King's Conquerors is getting there. Armament, I don't know how a lot of people feel about... I think everyone likes Rio. I don't know how they're going to feel about King's Conquerors coding. I don't even know what we're going to call that, but it's definitely interesting. But Haki kind of in general, like at the beginning, you could see like Shanks, like what is that chapter, within the first 5 chapters, Shanks gets his arm bitten off by a random fish bad guy thing, and you're like, wouldn't he be able to stop this if he wanted? He's Shanks. Like, was he a Yonko at the time? Who knows? But your arm just gone. But he used Conquerors right there, and you can't even really debate that. In the anime, it kind of shows that. But it's interesting. It's like, how long has Oda actually known about all these things? And I think he just decided to end up giving it a name at some point, and he decided on Haki, and split it into 3 branches of things that we had already seen glimpses of, but were not shown or visualized the same way. And it's kind of beautiful to see with Oda's writing in general, that he's able to kind of have these ideas, slowly like work them into the story, and then you're like, oh, that's actually a thing. So you can actually like post-date it, and you're like, well, this is clearly in his mind, he just didn't have it like fully cemented, fully mapped out to the sense that it was a thing. And now it makes more sense, like certain things that have happened in the past. And if you go back and read it, I'm telling you, it's actually really interesting, just when he decided to make that. And when he decided to umbrella all 3 of these ideas, observation, Kings, and armament, into one fold, which is Haki. But I could talk forever about Haki. I might even make another video about this at some point, but I think Haki's awesome. I think it can kind of be a little difficult to visualize, but once you kind of start to understand what all 3 are about, then it does start to make sense. It does start to fit into One Piece. And I think in a show manga that's all about will, that's all about trust, that's all about the future, that's all about these things, that I think these 3 power moves in terms of Haki in general is actually very fitting. It's very fitting. Because honestly, Devil Fruits are still probably like a little higher up on like what you see for One Piece. Like whenever you talk to somebody, it's not like, oh, which Haki form would you have? It's like, no, which Devil Fruit would you have? But Haki's awesome. I think it's great. I think we're only kind of, there's still probably tons we don't know. Shanks is going to be giving us something with that. I don't think he has a Devil Fruit. He might have time, but who knows? Who knows? But that's it for today. You guys take care. Break this week, which is very sad. But next week, we might see some more fight on the rooftop. Or just between King or Sanji coming out, or something else. Who knows? But I'll see you guys later. Subscribe, like, comment. Peace.